Hi, all, and welcome to an interview that I held recently with Matt Sprange from Mongoose Publishing. As you know, Mongoose have recently acquired the Dark Conspiracy property and are currently talking about what the future might look like for this great game. Hi, Matt. Thank you for coming and joining us. This is the first time I've ever done a live interview. In the past, mostly I've done them via text. So, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on and have a bit of a chat. Obviously, you're the head honcho over at Mongoose Publishing, and I thought perhaps given the fact that I run Dark Conspiracy, the RPG.com, which has been a fan site, we've been around there for almost 20 years now. I think next year it's been 20 years it's been floating around. I thought perhaps it might be worth maybe you just introducing yourself and talking about Mongoose and how they came about.
Yeah. Goose has been around for 24-ish years now, coming up to the quarter century. We started off with D20 support products for Dungeons and Dragons, and a few other bits and pieces. But today we're mostly known for Traveller, Paranoia, and Sea of Thieves.
Cool. Excellent. I'm sure, well, I'm aware of some of them, and I'm sure people that have been watching this will be aware of some of them as well. Traveller, of course, is, I think, a perennial favourite for everybody. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's not heard of Traveller in the past. So that's excellent. Starting off with Dungeons and Dragons, that was obviously an interesting time during the early 2000s, I guess, and the world moved on. So obviously, you announced last week that you've acquired the Dark Conspiracy property. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's the entire property. It's not just
It is.
licensing.
Yeah.
Yep, excellent. So maybe you could talk about what inspired you to do that and why you thought Dark Conspiracy was a good thing to add to the Mongoose stable.
Well, that's quite the question. I mean, beginning of last year, we did the same thing with Traveller, and that was a big beast. It took about a year to bring everything together for that because while Traveller had been produced by GDW back in the day, it passed through all sorts of publishers. There were third-party publishers for it, and so it was a case of Mr. Miller bringing everything together in one document to say, yeah, this is what Traveller is. And then we, a little later in the year, we also did the same thing with Twilight 2000 and 2300 AD. And Dark Conspiracy was always the one that was kind of on the periphery of that. So we'd had very sketchy conversations about it last year. And it was always on the list of things we would probably get round to doing, but we got more than enough on our plate at the moment. Um, and while those other games, as I say, Traveller took a year to get all the paperwork together for Twilight and 2300 were quicker. Dark Conspiracy was a bit odd. I was talking to Mark just 3 weeks ago now about something completely different, and I mentioned Dark Conspiracy might still be a thing we could possibly be interested in the future, later this year, next year, year after, whatever. And he came back to me the next day. Do you want it then? We can do this now. And I swear, a week later, we'd signed the agreement, made the payment, and we had it.
Excellent. Oh, that's fantastic. Um, Dark Conspiracy is one of the games. Obviously, it's dear to my heart and it's dear to lots of people's hearts. And it's obviously got a bit of a potted history. We won't go into some of that. I'm sure you're aware of some of that, and some of it's, people are aware in the ether of what's happened in the past. So I think it's a game that lots of people know of and lots of people enjoy. So I guess that's probably leads on to the next question. So what's Mongoose's goal in updating Dark Conspiracy? And I mean, how will you update it? How will you bring it to life?
Well, this is quite the story. um, there's one of the things that we really locked onto with Dark Conspiracy is we had a game that we'd been wanting to do for best part of 20 years now. Um, and we sketched an outline for it and kept going back to it every so often to update it, but we couldn't make it work. There was just a component in it that we felt we couldn't do properly. We couldn't do it justice. So back into the drawer it goes. Maybe we'll have another crack at it. And then we started talking about Dark Conspiracy, and it suddenly hit me. Dark Conspiracy was the missing component. So what we're looking to do, and please bear in mind that at the earliest we're talking next year for
Hmm.
anything to come out, and it's probably more than 12 months, so maybe summer next year, maybe Christmas, maybe the year after, I don't know. And at the moment, we've only got about 100 odd pages of outline and mechanics sketched out. So
Right.
this is all early days, and absolutely everything I'm about to say is subject to change
We
if
won't
a
hold you
better
to
idea
it.
comes along. So our plan at the moment is to do not one Dark Conspiracy core rule book, but three over a period of time. Um, the first one will have the players being ordinary people set in today's world, or maybe 2 or 3 years hence, um, and someone knows something about the Dark Minions. Odd things beginning to happen, and they know it's bad for humanity, so they're trying to draw the resources together. So little cells have been set up all over the world, and the players will be one of these. At the moment, we're calling them operatives. That might change. Um, so what the players will be doing is they won't really know anything about Dark Minions or anything else that's going around. So they will primarily be investigating and then trying to put a stop to whatever
Hmm.
threat they've come across. Here's the thing: the rest of the world can't know about this at the moment because they're whilst you have this group who do recognize the danger, there's going to be other groups who recognize an opportunity in it, whether they're private corporations, governments, whatever. And you can play with the shadow governments and what have you. That'll all be part of it. So, what the players will need to do is not only investigate a disturbance, not only neutralize it, they will have to hide it as well. And in this core rulebook, that's where the conspiracy is.
Right.
The players are the ones creating it. Um, so if I don't know, if they go to a remote village in Eastern Europe or Mexico or wherever, anywhere off the more beaten track, and they figure out there's the equivalent of a werewolf going on. Now, if they can track it down in the forest or the mountains outside and neutralize it, great, job done. If that thing wolfs out in the middle of the village, they've suddenly got a very tricky question because everyone's seen it,
Yep.
and that cannot happen. So they'll have to work hard to try and stop that happening. And if it does, well, they've got some rather nasty decisions to make. Or maybe they can be really clever, but that's going to be just as much part of it. That will be the first book. After that, incidentally, where the working title for that one is Dark Conspiracy: The Unseen War. Um, the next one that we release a year, 2 years after that will be Dark Conspiracy: The Open War, which will be more like the Dark Conspiracy that veterans will be used to. It'll be set 12, 15 years
Yep.
hence. The world has begun to break down. The players are still arranged into cells, but it will be they will basically be in control of their own cells. So they'll be making decisions about where to go, what to target, how to deal with the threat, whilst beginning to work with other cells all over the world. And finally, set 8 to 10 years after that, we've got Dark Conspiracy: The Final War, where the players will be in charge of the whole worldwide defense.
Hmm.
They will be going into other dimensions. And I've got this crazy idea that the referee will have their own game running in the background where they're arranging the resources of the dark minions in direct opposition to what the players are
Yep.
doing. So there's kind of a strategic aspect. That might be an absolutely crazy idea. I don't know if that's going to work in terms of an RPG, but we will see. So that's the kind of structure we're
Wow.
looking at the moment. And because we're using the traveler system,
Hmm.
also got this crazy idea that we will have, as well as normal adventures, we will be able to have generative systems within the game that support the referee in creating evening sessions for the players. So, for instance, in Traveller, if the players go off the beaten track, the referee's got all the tools they need to create new worlds, do trade between the worlds, find patrons on those worlds, and they're just kind of filling in the gaps. If we can do the same for Dark Conspiracy, then you won't always need an adventure every night.
Hmm.
You can run things on autopilot almost if you wish. But here's the thing: you'll be able to create players will be able to create characters in the first book and play all the way through, and it's all of a sudden it becomes not just a game, but this grand epic arc
Wonderful.
from start to finish
Cool.
as you realize there's a problem and end saving
Yep.
the earth or destroying it. It's the things can go wrong.
Yep.
Um, so you've got that option to have a grand epic that you might play over 2 or 3 years. Alternatively, you might think, well, no, this is the era I want to play in. I'm a diehard Dark Conspiracy veteran, so it's the open war I'm playing in, and the others you might just use for support material. But you will have the capability, the possibility, if they survive, to take your character right from the start all the way to the end.
Wow. That's cool, and I like that idea because then you can build up, as you said, the power level and the
Yes,
experience and all
yes,
those threats. And yeah, I'm in my mind, I'm seeing things like the new XCOM and the way that it's done. It tells a story and then tells a later story, but it's all part of the same
yes,
world. I see those ideas harken back to other games like Conspiracy X, the same sort of thing. That's that first one, and then then you've got more openness later on, and yeah, I do. That's really cool, and it's a point of difference, which I think is fantastic, which is something that um, Dark Conspiracy really needs in a world. The world has moved on from the early '90s when it was
it
created.
has.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, I mean, we've got, whilst we want to, I mean, we can't change things wholesale because it wouldn't be Dark Conspiracy
Hmm.
anymore. And what's the point of that? But at the same time, we do have an opportunity uh, to bring focus to both the game and the setting. But the trick is doing that whilst honouring the old game and providing sufficient material that veterans of those games aren't completely cut out or lost when
Yes.
they come into the new one. So that's the tightrope to walk. Hopefully that they'll find enough things they recognise whilst appreciating and enjoying the new things that get added.
Perfect. Yeah, because that's probably the next sort of question I was going to ask is, obviously you've seen on the Facebook group, there's a couple of hundred dedicated followers of
Yes.
Dark Conspiracy, but that's just the people who are advocates and the loud people that like to get involved. I know there's a lot more people out there. Recently, there's been reviews appearing on YouTube about Dark Conspiracy from people I've never heard of, and I've been involved in this specific game for 20 odd years or 30 years, showing my age. And so I guess that's the question. What sort of experience maybe you'd bring from Traveller, and obviously you've grown that as well and redone that. Anything you could bring from that side of things?
Well, yes, I mean that's the kind of model we're looking at. I mean, we have brought new things to Traveller. We have gone in different directions, but at the same time, if you were playing uh, a classic Traveller in the late 70s, early 80s, if you transition to Traveller today, it's going to be a lot prettier. But you can do exactly the same things that you were doing back then in the same places. Um, Dark Conspiracy, I would hope we could do something very similar. As I say, if someone's locked into the setting of the original Dark Conspiracy, it's going to be the second core book we
Hmm.
do that's really going to be you. But take a look at the first one.
Absolutely.
Um, see what you think we're doing with it, and it will prep you for moving into that other era.
Cool. Excellent. That sounds really good plans. I was going to say then, obviously, the timelines move forward and you're going to reimagine where things are and moving forward. You talked about moving forward a few years. How are you going to manage that challenge of, without getting too political, the world's very different at the moment than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. And we all know about
Yes.
role-playing games that change and they don't reflect. How are you going to manage that timeline? Are you going to try and set your own future and your own things? Or are you going to try to make things quite open and adaptable?
This is one of the first things we thought about, particularly if we're setting the first book either in today's world or just 2 or 3 years ahead. So we that's obviously something we've got to take a look at. Now, it would be the easiest thing in the world to say for us to pick a side in the culture wars and say this is the one true way and the light,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a rather boring way of doing it, and it certainly would date things pretty quickly. So the way we're looking at doing it is this, and in our outline, I have actually sketched a real world example, which I'll relate to you here. This example probably won't make it into the rule book. Um, but for example, you've got three different groups playing Dark Conspiracy. In the first group, they have decided as a group that the current US administration has specifically moved into power because they're aware of the threat the Dark Minions pose across the world. They are I'm not judging anyone here, by the way. They Musk's move with all the Doge cuts is to sweep out all the Dark Minion influences that have already infiltrated the government. They are very keen on Greenland because that is a site of major demon land
Yep.
incursion, or it's about to be.
Yep.
So there's one group doing it that way. You've got a second group who have decided that the current US administration is a symptom of Dark Minions, which I must admit, I did find this one quite attractive because you've got the government delving into Dark Minion technology, using them as allies. And you've got a whole link there with a government dealing with the occult, which flips back to all the 1930s pulp stuff of the Nazis doing it. So you've got a completely opposite approach there, but we will provide a third approach as well, whereby we create effectively placeholder organizations. So if you need a security agency from country X, Y, or Z, we will provide one for you. It won't be a real one, but you
Mm-hmm.
can just slot it in. And that's the one we'll use in our official adventures and what have you. And you can easily substitute that for real world ones as you see fit. So you've got three different groups. One that has gone in one direction for a government, one that's gone in completely opposite direction, and one that has said, let's not even try to put real world politics into the game.
Yes.
Let's just do it this way. So
Brilliant.
in that way, we leave the decision up to the players. If you want to use Dark Conspiracy to explore ideas of what's happening in politics and culture today, you absolutely can. If you want to say, no, we want to keep that away from our table, leave it at the door, you will be able to do that by default in the game.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. And then some of that probably leads on. I mean, not only is it a logical way of approaching it from a business perspective, you've got a bunch of people you've got to manage and you've got to sell to everybody and everyone's got their own opinions. But also, I guess that leads into the next question, which is Dark Conspiracy in the past, probably the biggest or the most successful books that came out of it were the equipment books and the supplements that came out of it. Is there a plan to do more of those sorts of things? The Dark Tech book, the Dark Races book, things like that were really successful, not just adventures and
It,
campaigns.
yeah, I mean, that's, inevitably there'll be something like that. But if you take a look at what we're doing with Traveller, um, we do have the rule support books, things
Hmm.
like Central Supply Catalog, Robot Handbook, and what have you. But our focus is on setting and story. I imagine Dark Conspiracy will be much the same thing. I mean, you mentioned the Dark Tech book. That's probably something that will appear alongside the second core rule book,
Hmm.
the Open War. Will be keeping things a little bit lower key in the first book, for example. Um, we've already sketched out the rules for empathy in the game, and in the the idea we kind of got going for this at the moment is that in the first book, empathy is really weak as far as humans are concerned. It's very difficult to begin the game as an empath. You've got a miserable empathy score, and you can't really improve it.
Yeah.
In the second one, it's going to be a standard stat as with everything else, and you'll be more capable with it. And in the third one, that's when you can bring all the technology into to boost it, and you can become a real empath monster with that. So you've got the progression across the three games with that as well.
Oh, brilliant. No, that sounds great. And like I said, obviously with your idea of those three versions, it allows people to pick and choose. And I'm sure mechanically they'll all be the same system,
They
um,
will.
based on
As I
the.
say, it's possible for you to create a character
Hmm.
right at the start, and if it survives, go through the entire three-book epic campaign if you choose to play it that way.
Brilliant. Excellent. I think that will encourage people because we all know, I mean, lots of people come from the GDW backgrounds where they all like their gear and equipment and they all like their world and they all like to mix and mash it. From everybody that I've ever seen run Dark Conspiracy, in all its different previous editions have never been the same. So I think you definitely got the right idea there to allow people more choice, and so that's be
Yeah,
great. Excellent. So, with all these great plans in mind, and you did say there's a bit of a lead in time, it's like tomorrow we'll have a book appearing or even a few things appearing, and we all understand things take lead in time. Um, there's, would you be looking for contributors or to your core material or to the core books or to additional material? Do you think there will be a community program like you've got the Travelers Aid Society in the future? Is that something on the.
potentially. I mean, we're going to be launching in 2 or 3 months' time. A community program for 2300 AD. So it makes a degree of sense for Dark Conspiracy to have something similar.
Yep.
In terms of contributions to the actual game, to the official books, um, we're not in a position to at the moment. I said we got about 100 pages of rules and outlines sketched out at the moment. Although, funnily enough, that almost completely covers all the player facing side of the first core rulebook. Um, the thing that's going to hold us up in the main is going to be deciding what the Dark Minions look, feel, and smell like.
Hmm.
Um, we feel they need a little bit more focus than they did in previous editions.
Yep.
And frankly, how they end up looking and the atmosphere they bring to the game, that is going to be what makes or breaks
Yep.
these rules. And we haven't figured that out yet. We're going to be bringing in a whole bunch of concept artists. We're going to play around with some ideas. We've only got the loosest of thoughts at the moment, but we'll be settling on art styles and what have you. And it's only after that that the Dark Minion side is what gets written about. So at the
Hmm.
moment, we've got half a game. Players can wander around; they can't actually shoot at anything. So no, that's what we're waiting for. We
Yep.
have had some people contact us about writing. Some of the original Dark Conspiracy writers have got in touch, and we've told them all, yep, great, it's entirely possible. Please talk to us early next year because we're not going to have anything to go until then.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that makes sense. And I think again, I can only hardly agree with your approach there. Um, bring up a game like the venerable Call of Cthulhu. It lives and dies by its, the great old
Yes,
ones, right? And I think
yeah,
Dark Conspiracy, yes, the flexibility of having things, but even then, some creatures and monsters that are Dark Conspiracy are quite iconic at that time when they were released. You know, Bloodkin, the Pale, because they were quite different takes. And so this is your opportunity to do the same thing, build your own mythos, if I may use that term,
Yeah.
and build that around the game. I think that's a really good idea. That's cool. Excellent. So you just mentioned that you've had a few people reach out. If there was people, I know obviously you, it's a close-knit community. Role-playing world is tiny. Everyone seems to know everybody. If someone did want to be interested in the future, or they've previously contributed, the recommendation to reach out in the new year to you early next year perhaps and say, hey, I did this, or I'm this sort of artist. Should I come and have a chat with you later on? Is that something you'd recommend?
Firstly, if they're an artist, get in touch with us right now because
Okay.
we always need artists.
Yep.
If they're wanting to write, I would strongly recommend they get in touch with us. I mean, we can't accept dark conspiracy stuff at the
Of
moment, we're
course.
just not ready. But I would strongly recommend they get in touch with us and have a look at writing for Traveller or 2300 AD. Firstly, it will clue them into the core game mechanics. Secondly, it will give everyone a chance for them to see what it's like to work with us and what it's like for us to work with them. Um, to see if they're just going to be good fits looking down the path. I mean, if they're not, it's not the end of the
No.
world because I say there's every chance there's a community program
Yep.
coming out. So
Yep.
if they think we're completely wrong and have got a whiz idea that they think really ought to be in Dark Conspiracy, it can still be in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ideally, what we're looking for at the moment is two or three people that we could end up calling the frontline dark conspiracy writers, just like we've got for Traveller. Um, so, I mean, that would be my hope, but that I would warn them that is a very, very tough thing to do.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I think that's something that amateur creators don't realize is that game companies live
Everyone
and die on
starts
their
off at the
writing.
amateur level.
Yeah.
Um, it is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It can be rewarding. Um, but as I say, not everyone's the right fit for every company.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
please have a look at writing for Traveller and or 2300 AD first, and everyone will get a good grounding of where they are at as a writer.
Cool. No, that's excellent. I think again a good positive approach. That way you can build your world, get to know the ins and outs and what's out there. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. No, that makes sense. So with all that great positive news, there's a question I wanted to want to ask you. Obviously, 4 or 5 years ago, there was an attempt by Clockwork to do a version of Dark Conspiracy. They went out and crowdfunded and got a good chunk of money off a lot of core fans who have sort of, wanted to see their game come back. Um, is Mongoose aware of what happened there? Is there any thoughts or anything around that in
Uh,
mind?
I don't know all the details.
Sure.
I'll be honest at the moment. We have started reaching out to people connected with the project to a see if any material was properly produced for it. And B, this will be the tough one. Try and get a list of the people who pledged for something and didn't receive anything. And would it be possible to marry the two of those up? I mean, even if it's just a bunch of Word documents with
Mm,
notes scribbled all over them, we can put those into a PDF and distribute them out. It probably won't be a complete game, but at least somebody will have they'll have something for their efforts, and maybe it'll provide them with a unique historical perspective on the game. I don't know if either of those things are possible or even if they still exist. But as I say, we started reaching out to a few of the people involved. If we can do something, we will. If we can't, we obviously
it's
won't.
yeah, a little bit of water under the bridge, and I think, well, in crowdfunding, everyone knows the risks when they go into these things. I don't think it's around helping a product get produced, and sometimes that isn't successful. I think some lessons learned for some people in that space, but that's what it is. So No, that's probably all the questions I've got at the moment. Thank you, Matt, for your time. It's really appreciated. And thank you very much for coming on, having a chat with me, a rabid fan, just a week or so after you announce. And it sounds like only a couple of weeks after you secure the
Yeah,
property. So that's really appreciated. And if possible, and maybe when things start to firm up, it might be worth coming together again. And if you want to talk more about where the game's gone, built on your ideas when they might have gone left or right from what your initial thoughts were when they start to get down on paper. We're more than happy to to host and do another interview with you as well. So until that time,
absolutely. It's as I say, talking about games is almost as good as actually playing them. So always
exactly.
happy to do it.
Again, cool. Well, thank you very much, Matt, and talk soon.
Excellent.